Libra at heart. Um, Born into a family of seven. I'm the third of five kids. I mean, anyone who's aware, you know what they say of the middle kids. So it's such a fortunate and interesting position in the family to be part of. Um, and then I went to, like I mentioned, I got my undergraduate degree from Federal University of Technology, Owerri, where I studied math and computer science with a specialization in statistics. Then got my MBA from William and Mary with a specialization in business analytics and marketing. Um, then outside work, when I'm not working, I like to cook. I like to work out. I love dancing. I sing classical music and opera. I enjoy driving and people watching. One of the one of the best sort of pastime activities I have learned as a marketer that actually really helps to get understanding of people. So people watching has been something that I've loved. On the side, I'm a big businessman at heart. I am a business growth engine. That's how I think of myself. Um, over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to not just only work for companies, but also venture into entrepreneurship and build my own businesses. Um, I worked in consulting for a large part of my career now and still consult on the side. But my experience has actually spanned multiple parts of business from strategy to operations, HR, and marketing. Let me just walk you through a little bit of my journey. Um, the I would start the key place where I always like to start my point was actually post secondary school. So I finished off secondary school in 2008. And then that was the first time I got the experience of being an adult where you have all of these big dreams, and then for some reason, things do not just pan out exactly the way you had planned. I had a couple of universities I thought I was going to get into, but of course, life didn't pan out exactly the way I had thought it would. I didn't get into the schools I needed to, so I had to re-strategize and rethink. And then in 2009, I got into photo, and I was in photo from 2009 to 2014. And then while in photo, I decided to test out my entrepreneurial side. In 2012, I had my first startup, which had failed. I started off a design agency, helping companies with their branding, their graphics. I did this in tandem while I was still in school. But in 2012, it actually failed. Um, I learned lessons there, went back, finished from school, and then in 2015, started off my career in management consulting, worked for a small boutique firm, doing strategy. But then, whilst I was doing strategy, I realized that a lot of the companies I had worked for, the major challenge that they were struggling with was their human resource. And so I decided to leave consulting and go industry, working for a company called Alara in Lagos. I was one of the founding staff members for the brand. I started off in HR, did HR for 6 months. I didn't really like it, then moved into operations, and then from operations to marketing. And I actually started off my marketing career in here, and we can actually talk more about this. Whilst working in Alara, I started off my second business venture, which is a fashion brand, still in existence, and still growing. In 2017, started that off, and then in 2018, decided to expand because I mean I loved what I was doing with my fashion brand, and with my passion for music and just sporting talent. I had felt that. I had an idea to expand my creative side to starting off a venture in entertainment, which was a very great learning experience, and I'm happy to chat more about it. Then in 2019, um, I started off a joint venture whilst working at Mason Fahrenheit. I decided to open up my consulting agency, a joint venture with the first company I had worked for, the first consulting firm I had worked for. Did that. And then in 2020, decided to go for my MBA. Where I went to William and Mary in Virginia, US. And then in 2021, interned at Microsoft and then came back to Microsoft as a full-time employee. And that has been my journey so far. I've been at Microsoft up until now. And I think that path has kind of gotten me to this point where I'm having this chat with you all today. So curious to hear the questions you have, and I'm happy to open up the conversation. I don't think there is much of a presentation for us to go through. I would actually want us to have this more as a dialogue and an open conversation. So feel free, share your questions, and let's have the conversation.
All right. Okay. Now, there are a couple of questions, and even before the session was, I guess I'll just pull up those questions, especially those that we expectant from this particular session. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So, if you have any further questions, again, I have dropped the link in the chat box. Just make use of the slide or ask whatever question that you have, especially how to scale your marketing career to global companies. And I'm sure you can do well to do justice to that. In the meantime, let me pull out the questions we have. Okay, somebody is asking that how can, well, this is a product manager, right? And then he's asking how he can do well with market research, especially as a product manager.
That's a very great question. I think one of the key attributes to any successful product is, of course, understanding the lay of the land. And I mean, the the great thing is research that used to be extremely complex. We now live in a world where there is abundance of data. So the first things I would say, start with the tools you have available to you, right? Start with the pool of data that you have available to you. Um, Depending on how broad your market is or how broad your vision is, um, start by testing small, leverage your community, put out surveys to gather first party data from your own network, the people around you. And then also rely on third party tools, right? And the very amazing thing, we're living in this great era where data is not just only very abundant, but then you even have technologies with generative AI that can actually help synthesize a lot of this analysis and help you glean some good insights. So leverage some of these tools. ChatGPT is a strong one. Microsoft Researcher is another one. And you can use this research, the findings from these tools paired with the insights from the first party data you'd gather whilst testing. And then build an MVP, put it out in the market, and just gather first party data because for every product you have, it's never relevant until people start using those products. And as people use them, you start to go towards product market fit. You're not going to have all the data at the first go, but it's something that as you start to roll out the product in tidbits, and then start to gather insights from users, that there is no better data points than the actual users of your product. So I would say start small, start with a small cohort of users and gather feedback as fast as possible and iterate as fast as possible as well.
Hmm. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think a follow-up question to that is that is it the role of a product manager to actually engage? I mean, this is also a product manager as well, to actually engage in product launch as well. I mean, in terms of I think the person is trying to ask the balance between the role of a product marketer and a product manager in terms of product launch.
Interesting, interesting. Um, so one thing you would realize in tech is the definition of roles are very fluid, right? So the in some companies, the way they would define a product marketer could be very similar to the way another company would define the role of a product manager. So it can be extremely fluid. However, the most common thing that the most common consensus that you find across board is it's not an either or. I think both the product manager and the product marketing manager have to work together in terms of taking and launching products to market. The product manager has deeper expertise in the product, deeper expertise in the technology, understands how the product works, understands the product roadmap. The product marketer understands the market, understands the consumer, understands the job to be done, understands how consumers interact with certain products. So it's a partnership between both the product manager and the product marketing manager. The product marketing manager works with the product manager to translate the technical legalese into consumable messaging that the regular and average person and an average user would understand, turning the technical features into clear user outcomes, right? And making sure that messaging breaks through the market. So again, I would say it's a combination and a deep partnership between the product manager and the product marketer, not an either or. Hopefully this helps.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I'll be sharing my screen now because some questions have dropped from, especially from those that are just that are on this call right now. So just for you to have a feel of the question. So here's the collection of questions we have on Slido right now. 10 questions have closed doors. For someone who can't afford a minute, let me try and minimize my screen. Yeah. For someone who can't afford an MBA or MSc abroad, how can I position myself for global opportunities?
Hmm. I and I understand when coming to sessions like this, you really want to get people want to leave with tips and tricks. Um, but one thing I've found is there's not a linear path to anything, right? Um, if you can't afford an MBA or an MSc, the one thing that you can actually afford is actually your own upskilling, right? The ability to be the best you can be in what you do first off. I think before you even decide to move to go to an MSc or do an MBA, because these things are significant investments, I think the first thing is really proving to yourself that you are in for this career path for the long haul. You have a passion for it. It's something you're interested in, and then just keep learning. And not just only learn. As you learn, you put it into practice. And even within the roles that you currently have, start to build a base of credibility and driving impact on even within the scope of what your current remit is, because every single thing you do tends to stack up, right? I think everyone's career is follows this whole compounding the law of compounding interest. Everything compounds. So you don't wait till you get the job to start doing the job, right? Even if you're a marketing associate today, how do you actually go from being just a marketing associate to becoming a marketing leader? How do you learn to understand what the industry is doing? How do you learn from your peers? How do you learn from people in other different markets and take the insights into what you're currently doing within your own local markets? Because that's how you start to craft yourself as a superior talent. And then you can then actually build a profile that would attract some of these key roles. The the market has become such a global space that talent have become extremely mobile. So the more you're able to upskill yourself and then also be able to represent the value you provide as a talent to position yourself right for all of these global roles, it becomes a lot easier. You give yourself more credibility in the space, and then you give yourself the chance to even compete healthily with people who are outside your own local markets.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, thanks for sharing. You can now, please, if your questions are being answered, you can just give a thumbs up. Or if you have follow-up questions or you want to give context to the question, you can just drop it in the comment section. But I want to believe you can I mean, did well, do justice to the question being asked. But I want to believe that all of these are being addressed. Before we go to the next question, I was actually trying to source for the person that asked for something that has to do with product launch strategies. So at Treford Pro, we actually have a course. I mean, it's a self-paced course. You can just go ahead and check it out. I've dropped the link in the chat box. We have something that has to do with that for product managers, for product marketers that you are looking forward to. Okay, after launch, what is the next thing that I have to do? It's something that we have catered for in Treford Pro. All right, ahead of us to the next question. The next question has to do with how did you decide on what part of marketing you wanted to specialize in? I
Oh,
think this has to be specialization. Mhm.
that's a very interesting question. I think even before I decided to fully get into marketing, I mean, a good number of us are very aware with the way the Nigerian ac educational system is set up, and even the market, the corporate landscape in Nigeria. The definition of marketing is most times confused as sales, right? So for the longest, I didn't actually think of myself as a marketer. But one thing that I always had a passion for was design and branding. So as soon as I was done with my degree at Futo, that year during my youth service, I decided to do a short course with University of East Anglia. And I did a short course on corporate branding and branding strategy. And the thing for me I really wanted to learn was how do you take design? How do you how do you go from just designing and having like just regular design elements to communicating deep value to customers, to evoking certain sort of emotions to the point where you're then able to get the customer who sees your work to actually purchase your product. So I decided to go learn about it. And in learning about branding, I just realized that there is more. The art of marketing is more of an science. There's a balance of science and art in there. And so when I started off marketing, I was fully in marketing because again, I'm a business person, right? I'm not necessarily the fluffy marketer. I am more a growth marketer. So I have a business background and then I approach it from a point of view of marketing and brand management just seemed like a perfect fit. In the consumer space, the brand management just sounded like the best fit for me because it brought together a deep understanding, deep mastery of business, plus an understanding of marketing and consumer insights. And then moving that to tech, the equivalent of a brand manager in tech is a product marketing manager. So I just felt like that seemed like a perfect fit. And a lot of the things I had done in the past kind of aligned to that, and I'm happy to chat a little bit more about it. Um, and so product marketing just seemed like a better fit for me. And with product marketing, still the same thing. You have to have deep understanding of the full marketing mix as well as a deep understanding of the business, right? So it just seemed like a perfect fit. The person that my personality is one that requires a breadth in terms of scope. So I always look for the thing that gives me the highest amount of breadth because that's where things get very interesting for me. And so product marketing just seemed like a better fit for me.
Hmm. It's more like knowing your persona, your strength, and knowing what exactly is in demand. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, now the next question, I mean, there are three follow-up questions that seem similar, and I think it's going to take you on a long journey with us. The first person asked, so I'm going to match three questions into one. How did you land your internship role at Microsoft? Did you have to pitch yourself or you went through the normal application process? Another person is asked, can you give a detailed view of your marketing role at Microsoft? Another person is asking, how do you get your job at Microsoft? So these people just want to, I mean, maybe like a kind of detailed view of how you land a job at Microsoft or any top global companies, and what do you advise to do on how to get a job at global company?
Absolutely. I mean, so my journey to Microsoft started way before I even decided to go for my MBA. I've always had a deep passion for technology. Technology has been something that, fortunately, I got exposed to at a very young age. So even though I didn't work in technology before Microsoft, technology has always been part of what I did. And so for me, the going for my MBA, I knew that I wanted to make a switch into big tech. I wanted to move into the large corporate organizations because prior to then, I've been in mid-sized organization because I really wanted to learn as fast as possible about running businesses. And in my next evolution after my MBA, I wanted to then see how big companies work and what are the key things that they do that smaller companies do not do, right? And then learn how you actually scale a business from a say $1 million business to $100 million business to $1 billion business to $10 billion business to $100 billion business because it takes different skill sets, right? And so when I was going for my MBA, as soon as I got my offer, I knew that I was going to go for an internship. So I started off searching for internships really early, and I had specific companies in mind. Microsoft is one of them. Google was another one. And fortunately, I got internships into Microsoft and Google. And I literally applied. I applied directly to the website. I didn't know anyone at Microsoft at the time. Um, but then I applied, made sure before I applied, I made sure that I was very clear on my profile. I was very clear on who I am. I was very clear on my why and what I was bringing to the board, what I was bringing on board, right? And fun fact, after I applied, it was like a day after I applied, I got shortlisted for an interview, went through the process. For university recruitment, you have two stages of interviews. There's the first interview, you get successful with the interview, you get invited to a super day. The super day is three consecutive interviews in one day. So you go from one interview to the next one to the next one. So three interviews at a stretch. Usually for a block of, it takes about 4 hours to get through the super day. And then if you're successful in the super day, you get an offer. And so that happened. I was successful, got in, interned, and then got my return offer. Um, Now the path will be very different if you aren't taking the university route, right? If you're going through industry, it's a whole different ball game. You would need to make sure that you have relevant skill sets, relevant experience. Make sure that, of course, the same thing that I had done, making sure that your profile really highlights the strength in your profile, in your experience, and how that matches to what they're looking for. But just remember when you're recruiting through the industry is a lot more competitive because you are competing with every other person that is in the industry, right? Just for context, we in my internship class we were I think 25 interns, and those 25 interns, a total of 10,000 plus people applied for those roles, and only 25 were taken. So just that gives you just a little glimpse of how competitive the big tech space is. So when you're thinking of applying, you need to spend a lot of time on working on your resume, making sure that you're highlighting the key parts of your experience. And I understand that with most of us who have experience in Nigeria, it almost feels like we tend to undersell our own experience in some way. But just realize that the fact that you've worked in Nigeria, if you're trying to move into any global market, you have international experience. So make sure you're positioning your Nigerian experience really well and learn to speak the language of the business. If you can't speak language of the business, you're going to struggle. Marketing is no longer just about being creative and coming up with fun stuff. It's actually having a deep understanding of the business that you're going into, the industry you're going into, and showing that you actually do have that mastery in that space.
Mm, Thank you so much. That makes sense. You were able to summarize your journey into Microsoft within a few minutes. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, up to the next question. Oh, very interesting question. Very, very interesting question. Okay. The person is asking, how do you manage your business while also advancing your career as a marketing professional? Let me try and share my screen. Did you get the question or should let me share my screen?
Yes, I actually
How do
actually
you manage? Awesome. Okay.
yeah. That's a I mean it's a question of balance, right? Because the the one thing that you would have to learn really quickly, especially if you're going to be in a global role or working in a large organization like Microsoft, is you are not paid to you're not paid by the hour, so nobody controls your hours, right? You're not paid to deliver on tasks. You're paid to grow the business, right? So you're pretty much hired as the business owner, right? So you own strategy, you own the you help shape the vision of the company and in this the part of the business you sit in. So you would technically have to manage how much time how you balance of your time, right? It's not easy, but it's doable. It's not impossible, right? And depending on the scope of what you have, you would have to balance off how much time you give to each, right? I know for me, because I'm not really a morning person. I'm more a night person. So what I do is majority of my work, my Microsoft work, I'm able to have covered within the time frame, my regular 9 to 5 time frame, and then post that I'm able to do other stuff. It's almost impossible to juggle both at the same time, but it's also still possible. You just need to balance off your time better because you own your time. So time management becomes very critical. And then ruthless prioritization, knowing what to say yes to and knowing what to say no to, being able to say no and actually know that no is no, and being able to say yes. So you know exactly what you want to do when you want to do it, and then you prioritize that.
All right. Thank you so much. Up to the next question. I mean, more questions are coming in. So I'll just try as much as possible to maximize it so that we can take as much question as possible. This person said is into HR consulting, but have very strong interest in marketing. How can I position myself within the marketing industry?
Hmm. I mean, I would want to learn a little bit more about what you do in HR consulting, right? Because I my suspicion is as an HR consultant, you have certain projects that you've done that have built certain skill sets that are completely transferable to marketing. The work that you would need to do is pulling out those very relevant experiences that you have and those accomplishments that you have that you feel are easily transferable to marketing. So first off, being very data driven. So like because being in marketing, the core skills that you need to have is great communication skills and a deep understanding of the business, being very data driven and being able to synthesize market insights, both qualitative and quantitative. So if you think through your current experience as an HR consultant, pull out some of those things that those projects that have built skill sets that are easily transferable to marketing. And then you just need to kind of rephrase them in a way that reflects how a marketer would think or a marketing person would think, right? So the first thing is just make sure that you have a clear understanding of the marketing mix. So do find trainings, do some trainings, learn a little bit about marketing, and then just try to look for how to transfer some of the things that you've done, the experiences you have in HR consulting, see how they actually play out into marketing, and just make sure that your resume reflects that.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. I noticed in the course of the conversation over time, Ikena was emphasized on the issue of skill set. I mean, once again, Trafford Pro, I think we already have a course to cater for that, especially it has to do with data, how you can make use of data for adoption, for product adoption, which I have dropped in the comment section. And for the HR consultant that is interested in product marketing, we actually have a course, I mean, a full package course that you might want to take a look at Treford.Africa. Here is the link to a complete course on Treford on product marketing on Treford Pro. Okay, so the next question, very interesting question. Okay, a minute, I'll be sharing my screen again. The person is asking something about customer reps. I want you to take a look at this. So yeah, the question goes to us, how do you find sales reps and customers to interview for a content marketing portfolio you are trying to build? In the absence of these, are there alternatives?
How do you find sales reps and customers? Um, I mean, for anything you want to build, right? There you definitely need to have a very like being a marketer means you always need to have a very clear deep understanding of your audience. If you're building something, whatever you're building, there is definitely an audience. If there isn't an audience, then you don't have anything, right? All you have is just an idea. And even ideas have to target someone. So I would start by being very clear on who the audience I'm solving for, what the problem statement is, and who the audience I'm trying to attract with whatever it is I'm building are, and then try to look for people are who look like this audience. So actually do the work to even define this persona, give the person a name, give your audience a name, give them an identity, both psychological attribution, demographic attribution, financial attribution. Because what that does for you is you've built a profile of an identity of your end user, of your customer. Take that profile and then start to look for people who look like that profile, right? And reach out to them, ask them to try out whatever it is you're building, share your ideas with them, and then just start to get feedback. On the sales side, definitely look for people who do sales within the same niche that you're trying to get into. Speak to them, find out about what they're seeing within the industry, what they're seeing in the market, gather all of these key insights. The thing about being a marketer is you have to learn to listen, and also ask the right questions, right? I think the one challenge I've found a lot of my colleagues and fellow marketers do have most times is not necessarily asking questions, is actually asking the right question. Because most times we think we're asking the right question, but we're not actually asking it in the right way. So just making sure that you're very clear on what you're trying to build, why you're trying to build it, and who you're building it for, right? And then communicate, phrase the questions of the things you need to learn, and then go into these interviews to the users and even professionals who are already in the space where you're trying to get into.
Mm, that makes sense. Thanks so much for sharing. One question again before I call on my colleague, who would be, I would give us an overview of what Stratford Pro actually look like. So here's the question. Very interesting question. So this is somebody who is actually into product marketing already. He said, hi, my team just released an MVP for a mobility as a service product. We are intentionally launching in just one LGA, not the entire city. We've hired marketers to drive user signups, but they are struggling to convince people. The main issue is that potential users are hesitant to share their personal information. So I think the follow-up question is, what do you advise could be the next point of action?
Hmm. The person who shared this question, I would actually want to chat a little bit more with you. But the looking at the question, a couple of things come to mind, right? So if the first thing that comes to mind is how clear is your messaging? Have you are you very clear with what your product is, right? And the value your product delivers to customers. Because the one thing that just understanding consumers and consumer psychology, the buying psychology, humans do not make rational decisions, right? Most buying and purchasing decisions are emotional decisions. So your messaging needs to, one, cut through the noise, two, address the emotional side of the consumer that you're trying to attract, and should have a very clear problem that your product or your service is solving for them. And it has to be very clear. That's one. Once you get the messaging right and you've gotten the positioning right, then making sure that the people who then take this message or take this product to your consumers to get them to use the product have a clear understanding of what the product is, the value the product provides, and a clear understanding of your messaging, right? Because it's one thing to build the messaging, it's another thing for people to actually deliver the messaging, right? So a critical part, a critical job responsibility of a product marketer isn't necessarily only building the messaging, it's also sales enablement. You have to ensure that your sellers are able to sell your message, deliver your message in a way that is super compelling and in a way that reflects the total essence of the product you're taking to market. So there is a lot that you need to do first off. So I would say with within the LGA that you're already in, you have an opportunity to see if maybe the lack of adoption is it coming from the fact that your product doesn't have product market fit, or people are struggling to understand the value of the product, or your messaging is just very convoluted, or your sales reps are not skilled up enough. So there are a couple of things, right? So it would be for this particular case, it would almost be a thing where you want to tease out each of these different options and figure out if what are the gaps there, and then try to solve for each of them one after the other. The thing about marketing and business generally, it's an iterative game. It keeps evolving. So you have to keep learning fast. You fail fast and you learn faster. That's the most important thing, right? So having this learner's mindset, and with every time you take a product to market, what you're looking out for is not actually what works, it's actually what isn't working that you can fix to make your product even better, if that makes sense. But happy to chat more. If feel free to connect with me. Let's chat a little bit more about this. Happy to chat.
All right, thanks so much. Soba, I think you're going to ask the question. Please just put it in the comment section if your question has been answered, because I actually later saw your follow-up question, but I want to believe the question has been answered anyway. So yeah, we'll be going on an ads break now. I was mentioning something about Treford Pro. So my colleague will be coming on board to talk about what Treford Pro is all about, what other courses and programs do we have in the pipeline that we want to present to you before we answer other questions that we have. Fermi, are you ready for us, please?
Oh, yes, I am. I'm
All
so
right.
enjoying Kena's session myself that I think I'm carried away. Thank you, Kena. Hi, everybody. My name is Feromi, and I work at Treford's. Amazing session so far. I think one key takeaway out of this is everybody wants to scale globally, but do we basically have the skill sets to match up these global roles? And just to tell you, this is basically what Trevor does for you. We're here to help you build a gap between the skill sets. I could hear somebody saying he or she's an HR, and somebody wants to pivot from being a digital marketer to a product marketer. Somebody's probably in their mid-level career in product marketing and probably wants to move up to being a senior level professional. And this is basically what we do for you at Treford. We have courses tailored for you for entry level. Um, we have courses in marketing tailored for you if you're in your mid-level career, and we have courses tailored for you if you're in your career. And we created some of these courses for you because while Ikena was also talking, he was so particular about data. And we could definitely see that for us as marketing professionals, or basically most of us who drive um, growth, we need to be able to measure data because that would in turn help us as marketing professionals, sales professionals, growth professionals, operations individuals, basically to now analyze data to make decisions in terms of our products or our services as in tech. Also, somebody was trying to say something about their launch. They want to launch a product. We currently have courses tailored to that as well. And being able to map out your post-launch strategies for your products. We currently have something um, tailored for you as well. If you're probably a marketing professional looking to map up your go-to-market strategy, um, we have everything for you at Treford. And for the ones we don't have, we'll definitely be having them very soon. Just to put that into play. You could take your time. While I'm also talking, my colleague will be dropping some of these courses into the chat box. You could take your time to explore, sign up on our platform, check courses you definitely know that you need to probably be an Ikena tomorrow, to probably be in Microsoft, those big four, Fortune 500 you want to be in. Also, just to add that we currently we currently went through an upgrade as a brand over the earlier in this year to map out the perfect practical approach by which we feel like marketing professionals are able to scale up their career. And we currently are starting our product marketing accelerator program. It's an eight weeks program, basically for every marketing professional who wants to move from their mid-level to their senior level career. This is basically for mid-level individuals as well. And what you basically learn here is trying to build comprehensive marketing measurements, design advanced paid acquisition strategies, and so many more. While you come here, could also definitely now request for the brochure if you want to probably have a 360 view about what this course is about. The curriculum has us targeting marketing analytics fundamentals, attribution models, SEO. Somebody was talking about, Ikena was also talking about what kind of tone is your product saying in the market. We have something tailored for this as well in our accelerator program. Also, we have the performance marketing program as well. Every marketing person has to understand that. I mean, while we're also chasing vanity metrics, we need to actually be able to tie some of these things into actual results. Um, for that 1,000 likes on IG, how many of these are converting into sales? Ikena was mentioning something that as marketing professionals, we need to be able to blend it with sales enablement. And this is basically what a class like this would definitely be doing for you. We are so excited about being your learning partner, and we look forward to being there while you scale up your career. Thank you very much. Over to you, Esther. And thank you, Ikena, once again.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fermi. Yeah, so that is Fermi, growth operations associate. So yes, just do well to go to Treford Africa to take a look at our Treford Pro process. Before I continue to other questions, somebody actually dropped a very interesting question in the comment section. It said, Ikena, what are the chances of a PMM becoming a global speaker, just like you?
Um, I actually think anything is possible, right? You don't necessarily even need to be a PMM to be a speaker, right? I think the the first thing is if you want to be a speaker, you need to think of yourself as a product, right? And then position yourself as such. Especially if you're a marketer, you have to market yourself as a speaker. So share if you provide value to people, and then you put your thought forward, you have one skill that is so critical in today's world that is filled with so much misinformation and so much noise is the ability to think critically, synthesize lots of information and put out a very strong point of view, right? And once you're able to start sharing your point of view, start small, put out your point of view, start sharing your point of view, make sure that you learn as fast as possible, share, and put yourself out there to speak because again, the first time it's not going to be easy just from the first one. So you have to keep trying and doing taking up smaller positions even within your current role. Are there opportunities for you to speak? Jump at those opportunities and then just build your speaking muscle. But the most important thing is you need to have a topic that you're going to be known for, you're going to speak about, right? So just start sharing thought leadership in that space because it's your thought leadership that would lend to you becoming a speaker and people reaching out to you to come speak on a specific topic that where you have domain expertise.
Hmm, that makes sense. Have a niche that you're talking about, and of course, as a marketer, be a good storyteller. Yeah, I catch that. Thank you so much for sharing, Kena. As you can see, these are the other question and answer my colleague is sharing on the screen. The first question, very interesting. This has been a very intriguing question, especially in the era of AI. You said, what do you see as the future of AI in your current role in terms of how AI can affect or replace your role as a product marketer? Could you please share your insights?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a very interesting time that we are currently living in. And this is as profound as the time of when we had the PC revolution, as well as even the internet. Um, I think AI is one of those moments as well. There is there are two camps of people, the people who are overly skeptical of AI and the negative impact on humanity. And again, everything I'm saying is with the knowledge that there is a potential of the technology being misused, right? And then there is the other camp of people who are actually very optimistic about it. I find to be part of the people who are right in the middle. I don't see AI as, it's not a competition between human beings and AI. It's AI as a tool to help human beings become better at what they do. Currently, I already see AI. First off, the advice I would give is if you are not using AI right now, you are actually not setting yourself up for success in the future. So get into it, play around with it, get comfortable with the tool, get familiar with it. Um, and then just certain things that you would naturally just do by yourself. Look to use AI tools as a tool to supplement what you currently do. It's not replacing you. It should be a tool to help you even be better at what you do, right? I give you a perfect example. And I'm currently writing an article on what my AI stack looks like as a product marketer, right? So take for instance, if I take one task, which is say messaging, right? I want to do messaging. For me to do messaging, I need to do a deep consumer research or customer research. I have to do a deep market research, the competitive landscape, the buying behavior, the pain points of my audience, the competitive solutions out there. In the past, it would be a thing where I would have to spend months with an agency, a research agency, building out this big research. Now with AI, I'm able to use AI as a co-pilot to do that first research, have a very this broad macro view of the landscape, and then start to tailor some of the findings from there into my messaging and my positioning, right? And so I go from researcher to co-pilot with, and then with co-pilot, I'm able to kind of figure out what are the key themes, right? Take all of the insight I've gotten from my research, put it into like a research, an analyst, the analyst agent that then synthesize, help me do like a macro meta-analysis on the insights I've gathered to find out what are the key themes that I'm seeing in the market and how can I take that to kind of shape what my messaging could look like, right? The key pain points I should be addressing. So these are ways that I think I use AI currently in my role, and you would see it's not making me less of a product marketer. In fact, it's making me better at what I do, right? And it's even making it's making the process of creation a lot more seamless. It's making it a lot easier. You have a lot more information that you can synthesize. Where in the past you would have to comb through multiple websites, and of course most times we would when we search something, most times most of us never scroll past the first page. But now what happens is with AI you can actually have you can have your AI tool and your AI agent going through multiple pages at once, synthesizing all the information in that page, and then you're able to glean the insights from all of that research. So I would say use it as play around with it, test things out. It would have hallucinate, but then you just keep trying it and using it. It gets better. And then, of course, your oversight, your human oversight becomes the most important part of it, right? So whatever it gives you, you then have to add your own human ingenuity in there because the value you have that AI doesn't have is you understand human beings because you are a human being. You know, understand how people think, you understand how people behave, you understand how people buy, right? So you're able to take that insight merged with what you've gotten from these AI tools to have a better output.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing, Ikena. I noticed quite a number of questions seems to be repetitive, probably for those that are just joining us. You can just check our YouTube. There's a replay of this session. We're actually live on YouTube. I've dropped the link on of our YouTube on the comment section. So you might just kind of take a look at the replay later on. There are some key questions that are already be answered by Ikena. So you can just take a look at the answers and how it is being addressed on YouTube. The next question will be what is the current product you are currently working on and what challenges are you facing?
That's a very interesting.
Right, right.
Well, I mean, I currently I do have a number of products within my portfolio. Um, but one that I'm super excited for is the GitHub Copilot. That it's an the so for the non-technical people, GitHub Copilot is an AI assisted development tool that actually helps developers write code, maintain code, upgrade their code, and then deploy the code seamlessly. It was one of the products that I recently launched at Build, the Microsoft Developer Conference in May. Super fascinating, exciting with the work we're doing there. So if you haven't tried it out, re- read up a little bit about GitHub Copilot. Look, with generative AI now, it is so easy to become a coder, and the world we're going into with where with AI apps and agents, people non traditional coders are now able to build applications really quickly and easily. So the barrier to getting into tech isn't as high as it used to be anymore. So go play around with this. So yes, GitHub Copilot is one of my newest babies. that I'm super excited about. And then recently we just launched GitHub Spark, also an autonomous agent for coding. So these are like some of the cool, exciting products I'm currently working on. I For confidential reasons, I can also share some of the other things we're working on, but these ones are publicly available, and I'm more than happy to chat or share some links to. In fact, I'll find some links to it and drop it in the chat. Feel free, go play around with it and experience it for yourself.
All right, thank you so much again. Now we understand the confidentiality part of it, and then yes, we look forward to the links you'll be sharing so that we can have a feel and a look at what you're currently building, especially at Microsoft. Okay, in as much as we are catering for mid-level professionals, I noticed quite a number of people. I mean, they are really intrigued with what is being happening, especially in the product marketing space. So I would like to match these two questions into one, and I believe they are from the beginner's point of view. Somebody is asking how to transition from SMM to, I mean, a fully fledged product marketer, and somebody is actually looking into, okay, is there a difference between digital marketing and product marketer? And which one is more in demand? Is it product management or product marketing? I mean, is there a way you can actually, for beginners, is there a way you can fine tune that particular aspect, especially for those that are looking into delving into product marketing and how they can position themselves? Yes.
Yeah. So I will answer this in two paths. The first one is, how do you go from social media manager to a product marketing manager? Um, the first thing that, and I say this to almost every single social media person that I've worked with, is somehow social media people I have learned, majority of the social media people I have worked with in my career tend to think of their role as, I'm just posting on social media. I don't really think of social media as a primary channel for delivering marketing initiatives, right? Connecting to customers, telling this brand story and bringing it to life. So the first thing I would say, expand your definition of your scope as a social media manager. You're not just only posting, you're not just there to reply to DMs. You're actually telling the brand story and creating the vision of the brand through that channel, right? So become more business focused first off, because if as a marketer, if you're not business focused, if you don't have a clear, if your eye isn't set on clear business growth, right? If everything you're doing isn't paying off to business growth, then you're just playing around, right? So the first thing is, become super obsessed about the business. That's number one. Secondly, be a great storyteller. Even when you post on social media, when you look at your content, how do you, if I'm a user and I go through all your content, what story are you telling, right? Is your story clear? Is there, do people understand what you're saying, right? Are you playing around with different form factors in your storytelling? Are you, how expansive are you with your strategy, right? That's another one. The third piece is, get into the data, right? As a social media person, you have first-hand information at how consumers interact with your brand. So get into the data. You have all of that information. But the challenge is, a lot of social media people shy away from the data part, the analytics part. When you go through every single post, right, there are lots of insights, consumer insights from every single post on social media that a lot of social media managers skip through. So get super obsessed about data, analyze the data, and then take information and optimize and grow, right? And then the fourth one is, you have to be strategic. It's not tactical. It's more about the strategy. There has to be a bigger play. There has to be a bigger vision that you're driving toward in terms of, even with social media. And then implement those strategies, test them out, see what works, and then revamp what doesn't work, right? Because those core skills is exactly what you need when you go into product marketing. They're not very different. The only difference is with product marketing, you're very, very focused on the product. You're very focused on the technology. Social media, you're pretty much breadth, and then you're optimizing it for a channel, but you still have the same sort of chatter as a product marketer we have. Maybe the only difference is perhaps you don't do messaging around the product. You don't build the messaging of the product. You don't do the pricing of the product, but you do the positioning, you do the placements, you do the promotion. You have all of that insight. So get really deep into the business and become extremely obsessed about it. That's the one way. Now, the second part of the question, I think I've forgotten the second part. Esther, can you remind me what the second part was?
Oh yes, the person is trying to navigate what exactly, let me just summarize it. Digital marketing,
Marketing.
product
Yes.
management, product marketing. I mean, how
Yes.
to find a way around it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So same thing with digital marketing, right? Digital marketing is still marketing. The only difference is it's not field marketing. Your channel is digital, right? So and people are still behind everything else, right? So regardless of the form of marketing, fundamentally it's still the same thing. The channel is just what varies. So I would say get very grounded on the fundamental principles of marketing and then grow from there. On the question of either or product manager, product marketing manager, I don't know that it's an either or thing. I think it's an and. So just optimize for where your skill set lies and go from there.
Thank you so much, Ikena. I'm trying to brush through the questions. Like I mentioned earlier, if there are some questions that I can see here that has already been answered by Ikena, you can just watch the replay on YouTube. There are two more questions to go, Ikena, if you don't mind. One question, let me just read it exactly how the person wrote it. What do you recommend to advance my career as a brand communication manager? My OKRs are largely marketing and growth, with 6 years of experience but no degree. Did you get that?
Yeah. I mean,
No.
so is the question to grow as a brand communications manager, or you want to?
Yeah, a way to advance my career, just like what she said. What do you recommend to advance my career as a brand communication manager, in which the OKRs are largely marketing and growth?
I mean, I actually feel like you have your OKRs place you in a great spot, right? Um, so what I would say is be very focused on the impact and communicate it clearly, right? Be super strategic to the business, make sure that you're delivering value to the business and communicate the value that you're delivering to the business. Make sure it shows. And it's not even a thing of just telling people. If you do, once you deliver great work to the business, you would see the impact. All your stakeholders would actually show you that actually what you're doing is impactful. So I would say be very clear on how you're thinking of your role. Make sure that your role is in lockstep with the strategic vision of the business. And then every single thing you're doing is laddering up to where the business wants to go. The the one pitfall that I find a lot of marketers make is they try to stay on their own lane and create stuff and do all of this fancy stuff. But the thing about marketing is that marketing doesn't exist in a vacuum. Marketing is there to support the business. And so when you think of marketing, you have to make it more of a team sport where you're co-creating with all your key stakeholders, sales, finance, products, right? You're bringing all of those people together. And then you become this huge orchestrator that actually then does that, where the value you bring is 1 + 1 = 100, right? Because you see left to right and you're able to bring all of these key folks into into the room to have good conversation. So collaboration is key. Communication is very important. strategy is very, very important. And just being very adaptable, being able to pivot as fast as possible, stay very nimble. Because again, the market is extremely dynamic, right? So just being able to move and shift. Strategy is never locked in place. It's something that morphs and evolves over time, but you need to be very aware of what is changing and what is not changing, just so that you can evolve your strategy as such.
All right, thank you so much, Ikenna. Lastly, before we go to the last question, we already taking feedback. I've dropped the link in the comment section. At Trefford, we are very high with feedback. So how will you rate the session with Ikenna? What are your key takeaways from the session with Ikenna? You can just drop them in the link, which I have dropped in the comment section. Very, very important to us. And what do you advise we improve on? Okay, the last question that we have for you, Ikenna. This person is actually a product manager, and you're currently working on an app. And according to what I said, the app isn't well known yet. As a product manager, I know we need user feedback to improve the product. How do you suggest I support the marketing team?
I mean, make them a key partner from day one, right?
Mm,
Make them a key partner from day one and bring them into the room. There is always this um, there is always this need for technical folks to kind of build in a vacuum and then just tell marketing to, hey, go do this thing, right? Whereas the key, if you bring marketing, and this is the thing about as marketers, if you position yourself strategically in the business and your stakeholders see you as a value driver for the business, they would make sure that they pull you into these conversations early in advance. So make sure you're focused on value. And so as the product manager, pull your marketing stakeholders into the room right from the get-go, even before you start building anything fancy. When you're still even writing the PRD, you're still writing the requirement doc, bring them in, share the vision of the product, because here is the thing. Give your product marketing counterpart the charter to go find if this idea is even viable in the market. Use them as a platform for scale, right? And let's say you've already built an MVP and you're looking to then get this into the market. Use that marketer to get that to select a small cohort of people, right? The marketers work with industry analysts, they work with industry peers, right? So use your marketing counterparts as a deep partner to help drive scale for your business, because the span of knowledge that your marketing counterparts would have in terms of the knowledge of the market, knowledge of the consumer, you may not have as much insight. So bring them in as a key collaborator. And it's a thing where if you succeed, they succeed. If they succeed, you succeed. So it's a team sport.
mm. Thank you so much for sharing, Ikenna. Just like I've shared, this is a feedback session from Ikenna. If you still have any follow-up question, I think we still have around 5 minutes. If you have any maybe follow-up questions that you want to ask Ikenna, for those that had asked some questions that it seems it was not attended to, it was because it was a repetitive question. Probably you didn't join the session on time, so it has been already answered by Ikenna, especially those that are still looking for how to get a spot at somewhere like Microsoft. So you can just do well to just watch the YouTube replay. Like I mentioned, is this session is live, so you can just watch the replay on YouTube. And probably you missed a particular part, you can watch the replay on YouTube. So right now we are taking feedback. What is your feedback? How will you rate this session with Ikenna? You can just do well to you can do well to just drop that in the link I'm dropping in the comment section. How will you rate this session with Ikenna? What are your key takeaways from this session? And what do you advise we improve on? A minute, it seems another question just dropped. So we'll be taking the last question. Okay, the last question for you, Kena. I think you've answered this in a
Mm.
way, but I want you to maybe rephrase it for this person. He said, as a marketing professional, how can I effectively communicate my value to global brand?
Yeah, it comes back to understanding what you want, what you're communicating, right? You first off need to understand the value, your value, and assign yourself a value, right? So you understand the value, and then you make sure it's captured in a way that resonates with the people you're trying to attract. So for instance, if you're trying to attract, say, a Google, for instance, how much do you know about Google? What sort of people does
Mm.
Google hire, right? What do they look out for in people that they hire? Do you have those qualities? And if you do you have those represented in your LinkedIn profile? Do you have them represented on your resume? Right. So you need to understand, start really clearly with who you're trying to attract, who you're trying to speak to, the value you're bringing to them, and make sure it's well communicated. So clarity is key. So this whole test around messaging, it starts with you. It's not just only on your product, it's also you as an individual. How do you message the value that you provide to these big brands? Because brands they would pay for your skill if they feel like your skill is in tandem with what they're looking for. But if you're unable to show them that your skill is, they will go with somebody who is able to show that their skill is so, right. But the work is on you to make sure that you communicate that value clearly.
All right. The work is on me, on you as a marketer to be able to communicate that value clearly. Thank you so much. Okay, now for sharing this. I also believe we've learned a lot. Please just do well to share your feedback. In the link that I have dropped in the comment section. Have you read the session? Just give a rating to this session. What are your key takeaways? We are very, very high on feedback, especially at Trefford. What are your key takeaways from this session, and what do you advise to improve on? For those that are still asking how you can get for the courses that was introduced earlier, how you can get, I mean, probably you missed that. Just go to Trefford.Africa and then you take a look at the courses that you can just want to pay in for. At, I mean, it's self-paced. Got Trefford.Africa. Look at the courses that you might be interested in. Ikena mentioned on data. We have courses on data, how you can use data to drive product adoption, how you can measure and analyze using data. We have complete course, I mean, a complete package for product marketing. You can just do it to go to Trefford.Africa. And I also drop another link for Trefford event, Luman/Trefford event. That way, you can be in the loop for subsequent events that we'll be having where we have, I mean, wonderful people of caliber, wealth of experience. Like Itkena will be sharing their wealth of experience with us. Let's go to lu.ma/Trefford event, where you would be, I mean, you'll be posted with events that will be happening in Trefford. Right now, we have our sessions, 8 weeks, 6 weeks. I mean, rigorous, intense sessions that we have. Our marketing accelerator is in the pipeline. Will be starting soon. You might want to save your seat. We have our performance marketing and 8 weeks journey with our facilitators, wonderful facilitators in the house that will be taking us on how you can actually do well in terms of performance marketing. We have our brochures well available. You might want to take a look at that and save your seat there. So yeah, this is how what we have now. We need more people to give in their comments. I think we already have 3 people. We need more people to give in your comments. How will you rate your session with Ikena? What are your key takeaways and what do you advise to improve on? So this is where we'll be ending the session, but you can't leave without giving your feedback. Please give your feedback. What are your key takeaways and what do you advise we improve on? Let's do that in a bit while we release us to have a wonderful weekend, especially for those who mentioned that they had an hectic weekday. Thank you so much, Ikena. Ikena, do you have like a sort of a closing remark for us? Yeah, a sort of a closing remark for us.
I mean, it's been such a huge pleasure and an honor to speak to every single one of you. What I would say is don't stop dreaming about what you have in mind, right? Keep visualizing exactly what you want to do. But then it also takes some work. Just do the work
Mm.
because it pays off at the end of the day. So keep at it, it gets easier over time and it stacks up, right? In the moment, it may seem like you're not making progress, but every single step, every single activity you do today actually gets you closer to that goal. So just keep up with it. It gets better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. For those that are asking, oh yeah, you mentioned Trevor Learners Community. How do I join this community? So yeah, I will be dropping a form right now, so you can just copy the link and at your free time, you might want to like input your details. I mean, for those that have filled it over time, thank you so much. Like I mentioned, what's your pain point, what you look forward to in tripod events is actually what is shaping whatever event you are bringing to your way. So just put in your details, your current roles, and what you expect more from triple learners community, your current pain points, and how you want these sessions to address them. So in a bit, I will be sharing what our learners, I mean, from this call has put here. What are your key takeaways from this session? Somebody mentioned speak the language of the industry, learn how to communicate your value. Ikena is well experienced and he has good example. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. Positioning matters. If you want to work with a certain brand, then you have to do the work, understand the kind of people they hire, and look the part. And you must have done the work too. Thank you so much for putting everything Ikena has said in just these few sentences. Another person mentioned, okay, oh, the same person. Secondly, global brands are hiring people who can take ownership of the business, not being an employee. That's it. Oh, thank you so much. Be big on data and understand businesses to work effectively with them. Yes, data is very important, especially as a marketer. That's why we have complete courses and we have programs for data. So you can just do well to check on Trefford.Africa to learn more about data. What do you advise to improve on? Trefford is good. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate this. You always enjoy session. Nothing for now, more teachings from the speaker. Of course, I mean, you can now be proud to have us. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. Okay, now thanks for the closing remark. I want to believe all our questions have been answered. Oh, yeah, we have 5.0 for Ukena. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming around. We really, really do appreciate you. It's exactly 2 minutes to 11:30. Oh, another person's putting you are responsible for selling yourself to their hiring managers. Exactly. I guess that is the highlight of today's event. Thank you so much. So here we've noted that from Lagos to Microsoft HQ, you must learn how to present yourself and do the work. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kena. We really appreciate you for coming. We do not take this for granted. Thank you, everybody, for coming around. Do well to put down your names for Trevor Learners Community, the link that I dropped. Do well to check replay if you miss any session, and we look forward to you in our subsequent session. Do have a wonderful day, everybody, and bye for now. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Kena. Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, and you too.